I see a dumpster. Garbage is going to
Okay, I'm ready.
All right, it is 5 o'clock. We'll call this meeting to order. We'll start with roll call. Chair, Seth, present. Vice Chair, Ned.
Present.
Alder, Andy.
Here.
S.E. Fells from Transit.
Here.
John Arndt.
Present.
Deb Hutchison.
Here.
Chase Highland. Not present, not excused. Julia Nordyke.
Present.
Mark Walter.
Here.
All right.
Okay.
We'll move on to approval of the agenda.
So moved.
There's a motion by Randy.
Second.
Second by Essie. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? All right, that passes.
Hold on one sec. Sorry.
Give her a minute before you get to the minutes.
One.
I'm so sorry. Hold on one second. All right, I will fix this later. Go on.
Okey doke. We'll move on to approval of the minutes from our last meeting, August 14th, 2019. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
There's a motion by Alder Randy. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by John. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries.
Okay. And we're on to regular business.
All right, regular business, item D, a little bit of deja vu, I guess. So this is the Green Tier Legacy Community Program resolution that we had taken up in December. As you might recall from our November meeting, nearly a year ago, we had a couple folks from the Department of Natural Resources Green Tier Legacy Community Program come in and present. The program, as you might remember, is for municipalities other than Milwaukee and Madison to really assess different areas of sustainability, everything from stormwater management to energy and waste and things like that. They provide grading criteria and resources for municipalities. We all really liked it, and we sent that resolution to committee. Unfortunately, that committee, which is, remind me the committee, PD?
Improvement and Services.
Improvement and Services has not put it on the agenda despite being asked. So the director of the Department of Public Works has decided to not put it on the agenda, so we're bringing it back here. I think there's been numerous attempts to get it put on the agenda. As I recall from our conversation in December, there's a little bit of discussion as to which committee we should send it to. So rather than waiting for another year for him to change his mind, I think that it would be appropriate to discuss sending it to a different committee so we can finally get this to the city council floor here. I don't know if there's thoughts or committee recommendations on that.
Protection and policy.
Is that a motion?
It's a motion.
There's a motion to send our Green Tier Legacy Community Program resolution to protection and policy. Is there a second? Second by Deb. Any further discussion before a vote?
Alder, why don't you describe what protection policy does?
What is the protection policy?
We deal with licensing and ordinances. We also are sort of like catch-all for anything that won't fit into another standing committee. It comes to us. So I think it's not inappropriate to send it there. It's a good fit.
Thank you. Further discussion? Ned?
It seems to me that it would be highly irregular for a commission to send an item to a committee and not have it show up in that committee's agenda.
Yeah.
I agree.
And I don't believe that is in keeping with what the public is expecting from our city government. So I'd just like to state that on the record. That if we make a recommendation, it should be showing up.
Yeah.
in
Even if
short
they just
order.
want to receive place it on file. I mean, that's the committee's choice, but they should be putting it on their agenda. I see no reason why you wouldn't. I can't imagine. Even if you don't like it, receive it and place it on file. Then when it gets to council, anything goes.
All right. Further discussion, questions, comments? All right, so we've got the motion to refer to Protection and Policy Committee. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? All right, motion carries.
And we're on to informational.
All right, we've got a presentation here. So I think we've discussed in the past, our friends at Wisconsin Conservation Voters, woo, yeah, and Joshua, the local faith-based social justice group, put on a community listening session back in June. I know a lot of us were able to attend at the library, and they, yeah, I don't want to ruin the ending, but they're here to present their findings. So full disclosure, I'm employed by Wisconsin Conservation Voters, but we've got Casey Hicks here, our Northeast organizer, to, yeah, show us the rest. So we'd like to entertain a motion to open the floor.
Motion to open the floor.
Randy has that motion. Second by Mark. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? All right, floor is open. Casey, take it away. Give us your address.
Name and address.
Yeah.
Address.
Casey Hicks, 1332 Angels Path, apartment 28, De Pere, Wisconsin, zip code 54115.
Thanks.
Yeah. Okay, so now I have to figure out how to hook up
Oh,
to this,
yes,
right?
here, I'll do that.
Okay.
Does everybody have a
I think
paper
it goes
copy?
in your
Mind if I
ear.
sit here, Doug?
Casey,
No,
I
no, no.
think it goes in your ear.
Randy?
It goes, I don't know about that.
Yeah, you got that.
Listen to him.
Yeah,
Oh,
that's the perfect advice when it's full season.
Yeah. I have one.
Yes, I forgot.
I think we should, as a commission, we should make sure that his biased opinions for this kind of presentation are kept out of the
I don't even believe in climate change.
Shutting you down. That's right.
It's just bigger. It's just long-term.
Yeah, glacier.
Is your computer on?
Yeah, my computer's on. Okay.
This is, you see.
Might have to mess with the settings.
All this water.
Oh.
I just did something on my screen.
There's professors from university, there's some school university. That's what it is. You have.
Is that a permit or?
RDA broke
and
it.
Is it rain, same concrete, it's just bigger?
Yeah.
There we go.
All more.
All right.
All right.
That's you.
Oh, yeah.
Cool.
Okay.
That was a really
All right, well, thanks everyone for having me. Again, my name's Casey. I'm the Northeast organizer with Wisconsin Conservation Voters. Rachel Westenberg from Joshua couldn't be here tonight to co-present with me, but just to kind of give you a synopsis on everything, we did this listening session back in June, and we had a little over 30 attendees from across the county there. We talked about a whole host of subjects, everything from climate resiliency to clean energy, transportation, waste management, and food systems. We really covered a broad swath of subject area. And after we had the listening session, we sent out a survey to people from our member list and out into the general public to got about 20 additional participants from that. And really our goal here was to source as much feedback, ideas, concerns, and equitable solutions that local governments could take to generate policy and implement that policy in the future to address climate change at the local level. So quickly about our participant makeup, we had a good amount of people from Green Bay, De Pere, Howard Swamico, and then a few other people kind of scattered across the county who came to be there. The majority were concerned citizens, but we also did have people who were present who were local elected officials. Some of you in the room were there to pop in as well. Nonprofit representatives, we have people from the farmery there, some folks from Chief Brown County were in attendance as well. And then academics and educators, some folks from Green Bay and people from NWTC. So a pretty good representation in that respect. One thing I do want to be transparent about though and note is that this is not a representative sample of the county, but rather more of a cross-section of and a snapshot of people who are really concerned about climate change issues at the local level especially. So I just want to make that clear. If you think it represents all 300,000 people in Brown County, it does not. But I think that the ideas and values and concerns that people brought up throughout the listening session and in the survey are still really valid and ones that should be recognized. So we'll kind of dive into things right away. A lot of the stuff later on will be a little bit more quantitative. The climate resiliency portion of this presentation is more qualitative and ideas-based and concerns-based. There's a lot more meat and potatoes in the environmental justice report here, which everybody should have a copy of. If not, I think it was submitted, right? So people could look at it later.
Yes,
Yeah.
and then that means if it's submitted, I put it in with the agenda, it means the public has it.
Awesome. Cool. Yeah, so you can look in to see more details in here later on, have some light nighttime reading if you want. But right now, as you all probably know, flooding has really been a major concern for people in the area. It's shown a lot up in the news. Of course, the city of Green Bay and Brown County are starting to take steps to mitigate flooding and put into place different emergency preparedness policies and procedures. And so because of all this and how much flooding has just happened within the past year, this was a really big topic that we talked about at the listening session and really came up as well in the survey. So participants expressed just how there should be really public-facing plans when it comes to emergency preparedness. People want to know what should they do in a situation where there's a large rain event and potential for flash flood to occur. Where do they go? What do they do? How do they even make their own homes more climate resilient? And one idea that came from a participant was to set up teams of volunteers beyond first responders. So people in neighborhoods who are just regular volunteers, everyday citizens who are willing to kind of like step up and help out a little bit more in an emergency situation. And in general, having more public-facing plans, again, on kind of like an education campaign on what to do in that type of situation. So that's really in the emergency preparedness side of things. People also talked about preventative measures, and really the crux of that was overdevelopment and misuse of land in some cases. People talked a lot about how many unused parking lots there are in the area, how much great infrastructure there is that's not permeable and doesn't soak up water or slow it down at all from going into bodies of water. So one solution that was offered up from somebody from the Farmery actually was introducing riparian zones and buffer strips and just other types of easements and green infrastructure around bodies of water to slow water going into them. I think especially the East River, I think was brought up back in the listening session about how much that is flooded. So to soak up that water and to slow it as well to prevent flash floods. People also talked about redevelopment of former wetlands when the chance arises and preservation of wetlands that are in existence already, as well as just zoning for green space and performing green infrastructure audits, which I know the city's already in the midst of doing, so that was good. And again, this was back in June when that wasn't happening, so way to be ahead of the curve on that. And then people also talked about other types of infrastructure beyond green infrastructure and expanding and designating shelters and places people could go to and making that publicly known on where they could go in an emergency situation. And of course, updating stormwater infrastructure to handle larger scale rain events. And one thing I should mention too, as we're going through, feel free to stop me and ask questions. I think it'd be great if we could make this a conversation too, if you guys have things that you want to add or comments or anything like that. So moving on to health effects. Unfortunately, we reached out to Bellin to see if they could send a representative. They were interested, but unfortunately, nobody from the healthcare industry made it, but we'd love to hear what they have to say about some of this stuff. You've probably read in certain studies in the news that some of the ways that climate change will affect Wisconsin specifically, and not just Wisconsin specifically, but is increases in lung disease and heart disease, allergies from particulate matter in the air if we don't cut emissions. Probably the most annoying in my mind is mosquito and tick-borne illnesses increasing as temperatures rise and it's easier for them to reproduce. There's more of them and a larger chance for those types of illnesses to be prevalent. And illness resulting in degradation of water quality as water temperatures rise. There's more of a chance for blue-green algal blooms to happen, and more of a chance for decreased water quality in that respect. So one of the solutions that was offered up by a participant that I personally found very interesting was sharing public health data between municipalities and healthcare systems, specifically around climate change, almost kind of like a climate change epic if you're familiar with the data system that healthcare providers use, and performing epidemiology studies basically and sharing that public health data to stay ahead of the curve. People talked about penalizing polluters at the local level. They weren't very specific as to what types of penalties they'd like to see, but they did talk about passing local ordinances that exceed federal standards and enforcing them. Of course, that's not possible all the time for a local government, especially people brought up banning single-use plastics. Of course, the state doesn't allow local government to do that. So, but where people were interested in local government, I guess exercising its power is to pass resolutions and lobby state officials to further enforce or create better policies to enforce regulations and these types of standards. So people were very interested in having that be a part of the larger discussion. And one thing that really should not be siloed that people were very explicit about when we were going through all these subjects was how vulnerable communities, people of color, low income, varying abilities, people from the LGBTQ plus community should really be involved in the decision-making process as much as possible, and really be given a voice as policies being created. But in some cases where that's not possible in certain areas, people were talking about ensuring that local elected officials have some kind of diversity and inclusion and equity training at least to be able to keep in mind those types of concerns as you're developing policy and creating solutions. People also talked about at the individual level, educating people on how to become more climate resilient in communities that might be zoned next to an industrial area if they're in a residential area and right next to that. And people further talked about zoning in general, about creating more walkable neighborhoods, better public transportation for people who are low income and who may not have access to a personal vehicle to make sure that they can actually get around and not contribute to greenhouse gases in our area. Eliminating food deserts and as well not zoning residential areas next to heavy industrial areas came up. And it's not mentioned in this slide specifically, but in the report you'll find that there's an entire section on agriculture. I think that does fit into the slide even though it's not on here. people were pretty adamant about including farmers in the decision-making process as well, and making sure that they're not being left behind in a just transition to clean energy. People talked about how farmers can be instrumental in sequestering carbon, how unused land that they have could be used for solar installations or wind installations, as well as one idea that actually came out from people, and it's again in the report, somebody mentioned taking topsoil from developments in the city and then giving that to farmers to use in their fields if it might be nutrient efficient. So I don't know about the science about that personally, but it was an idea that came up, so just to kind of give you an idea of the diverse array of ideas that came up from people. So stepping out of climate resiliency and getting more into clean energy, I think this is the subject area that people were the most excited to talk about, with how many technological advances are coming about and how much less expensive renewable energy is at this point than it was even 5 to 10 years ago. Overall, participants were very supportive of clean energy goals. One subject that came up in my group in particular was people's concern with basically the IPCC report that says we only have until 2030 to prevent an increase in 1.5 degrees Celsius in global temperatures, otherwise there will be irrevocable changes. People felt that because of that report that the goal for reaching 100% clean energy should be much sooner than 2050. And so that came out in my group, and then we put that out into the survey and got these results back, where the majority of people out of the 20 respondents said that we should reach renewable 100% clean energy much earlier than 2050. And 2030 was the date that was suggested by people at the listening session, just to add some more context to that number. People definitely want to make their own improvements to their home, but because of cost and just because of education and information out there, there were a lot of people who didn't necessarily know how to go about doing that. So people were supportive of local government providing assistance to homes and businesses to make their own sustainability upgrades, to invest in clean energy. And a large majority of the respondents in the survey said that they'd like to do those types of things and that they'd like to support. So again, like I said, a lot of people expressed concern over how do you navigate that, how do you pay for it. Cost was a prohibitive factor for people, was probably the one that came up the most. People also talked about conditional use permits, placement of and zoning for solar panels, and can be prohibitive in some cases if you want to put it on more than one face of a building. So when some of these different solutions were brought up, people were very receptive to them, such as a revolving loan fund, group buys, so that people can do third-party installations and prices a little bit lower. Protecting or tweaking that metering, that's not a local thing that can be done, but again, it kind of goes back to what can local government do to lobby state officials to protect that or tweak it in some cases. Local subsidies, tax credits, and other incentives came up as well. So, so people were very excited to do this, but again, the education, they felt like wasn't necessarily there. The information for how to do it wasn't there, and the cost is still prohibitive for a lot of people, even though it is becoming less expensive to install clean energy and make those types of upgrades. So when people were asked about whether or not private businesses should be required to go 100% renewable, there was a lot more skepticism around that. But when talking about government buildings, people were, you could probably guess that they were all for that. and not putting a mandate on private business, people felt that government buildings should definitely have strict standards for efficiency and how they're sourcing their energy. As you can see, all the respondents agreed with that. So.
Can I pause you for a second?
Yeah.
Can you go back 2 slides to the local government? Right there, actually. So I just want to make sure everybody understands what the revolving loan fund, what that is, and you know, that we have one as a city. So if you're not familiar with the revolving loan fund, it's like the city has a pot of money, and we have one for businesses right now who might be doing a startup, a small business, something like that, and then so they actually borrow straight from the city and then do their project and then pay the city back, usually at a low interest rate. So like the idea behind this, I think, would be that the city or whoever would set up a fund for people to do clean energy or, you know, conservation projects and then pay the city back or whoever is funding, you know, at a low rate, correct?
Yeah.
Right.
So to add to that, we have a couple pots of revolving loan funds. So we have the CDBG revolving loan fund, which are for businesses only in a community development community development block grant area, which is a census tract that is low to moderate income. Then we have another loan fund for women, people who are minorities or veteran-owned businesses. That's from the excess stadium tax. And then we have another fund from the Redevelopment Authority for people to upgrade their homes. And those are mostly in also the downtown, low to moderate income areas. So we also have another grant program, which is not, it's a matching grant for the shipyard for people to make facade upgrades. So we've got a couple of different pots of money. Additionally, what we're embarking on right now, just to fill out what Mr. Dorff had said, we are embarking on taking the last year of a TIF funding, tax increment financing, and applying that to affordable housing. So I don't know if there's such a funding mechanism. I know that Treasurer Godlewski is working on some things, but just to fill out what's going on with the city.
And with some of those loans, it's not, you don't pay them back at a low interest, but you don't have to pay them back until you sell your house, as long as you're
That's the Redevelopment Authority one.
Yeah.
The shipyard is a grant, matching grant. The CDBG revolving loan fund, you have to pay it back, and same thing with the one from the excess stadium tax for women, diverse business owners, or veteran business owners.
Are there any requirements within these loans to include, be mandatory to include sustainability or measures?
Well,
As
to
part of the
businesses,
grant?
it's for various items in a business's operation. And many of those businesses are not, so no, there's no specific requirement for that. Because I think there's a lot of other things that are going into whether or not someone is a candidate to receive a loan from the city. And mind you, that's CDBG money, so that's federal money, so there's some other strings attached to that. For the Redevelopment Authority money for homes, a lot of that is for some, Tyvek wrap and, these are old houses. We got a loan. So these are old houses that need upgrades in order to be not only comfortable, but to also to be energy efficient, so new windows, new doors, new roof. And like I said, the grant for the shipyard is not, that's a facade grant, so that isn't for sustainable projects. But that doesn't mean there wouldn't be a pot of money for those kinds of things. There just isn't right now.
Cool. That's all very cool to know. So last thing with clean energy, for folks who aren't able to install their own solar panels or any types of renewables, people were really interested in seeing Wisconsin Public Service commit to 100% clean energy by 2050. That was both at the listening session and through the surveys, as you can see here. And it's important to note that WPS currently is only committed to a reduction of 80% from CO2 emissions from 2005 levels by 2050. There's other examples of utilities going much farther. Excel Energy in the western part of the state kind of being the gold standard, not only in the region, but really in the country too, and committing to 100% clean energy by 2050. And they've specifically cited that, even though they don't necessarily have all the technology to reach that right away, that there's R&D going on and there are investments happening to store energy and to make sure that that can actually be achievable by 2050. So another thing to note as well, participants were interested more in public utilities instead of private utilities owned by shareholders, just basically because they felt like, and this was the participants' perception, that private utilities are more beholden to their shareholders as opposed to ratepayers. So that was one thing that came up during the listening session, and that also came up during the survey as well.
For the utility stuff, and I was gonna ask later, but the NatureWise program that WPS offers, I mean, people didn't know and talk about just switching themselves to renewable energy immediately?
Yeah, nobody that I can remember from my group brought that up.
Because that's something, that could be a solution in two of your categories that are related to electricity within to moving towards reduction of emissions.
Right. Yeah, definitely. That's something that I want to express too, that like this is obviously all the perceptions of the people who are there. What they don't know is what they don't know. So there are some things that I think lend credit to that there needs to be more information out there for folks. These were still people who were definitely plugged in and care about this issue, but in a lot of cases still didn't know what resources were out there. So even though programs like that exist, there might be more opportunity to publicize them more. So moving on from clean energy into our next subject area, public transportation. This is something that Celestine and Randy, you both have probably heard a lot about from people about how they feel about public transportation. I remember when I was a student hearing a lot about how students felt about it. But so not only if we're going to be fighting climate change at the local level and thinking about that, do we have to worry about building efficiency and energy sources, but you have to be thinking obviously about transportation and the emissions that come from that. An EPA report from 2017 showed that transportation in the US contributes to about 29% of greenhouse gases. So that's something that people were also really excited to talk about. Participants overall were not really satisfied with public transit in Green Bay. 4 of the survey respondents said that none of the above described public transit. That was out of 20. You can see the most popular thing on here was that it was affordable. 7 respondents said that. And a lot of the other categories of accessibility, equity and reliability and eco-friendliness were pretty low. So those were people's perceptions of how public transportation is here in the greater Green Bay area. And again, as an aside, a lot of people expressed interest in electrifying the bus system here. And just to pull one quote from a participant, somebody said, public transportation in the Green Bay area barely exists as a viable alternative. So that was one sentiment from a participant that is also outlined here in the report. You'll find periodically throughout the report different quotes from people. So electric vehicles, a lot of people were very interested in the future buying an electric vehicle, but again, it kind of goes back to education and what infrastructure is available. People felt like there isn't the proper infrastructure to actually sustain having an electric vehicle. So out of I believe the 10 charging stations in the Green Bay area, I believe there are 10, most of them are in private property, like a festival or at the mall. There are a few public ones, of course, but people want to see more available. And again, I know the city is looking into installing more at Light Park, so that's really great. So this is something that people definitely want to do, but again, they don't feel like the infrastructure is necessarily there for them to be able to do it. People expressed concern over whether or not, can I get from Green Bay to Milwaukee with an electric vehicle? Is there the proper infrastructure to get me there? Obviously that goes a little bit outside of city limits and Brown County's limits, but people also express the same concern if they want to go further north into the UP or somewhere like in Bios County or Forest County or Marinette.
I will say that it's actually surprising within the last month, I've actually gotten requests at the university to start considering having EV charging stations there. So perhaps what we're seeing is that electric vehicles are getting to that level, and they're concerned that we need a corridor to have that in place and get the vehicles charged, so maybe more students are jumping onto the electric side of things.
One thing people expressed more frustration over was how safe they felt when it came to walking between municipalities or biking on public roads. Of course, if we want to, as a region, reduce carbon emissions, encouraging more pedestrian walkability and more bicycle-friendly streets is going to be integral to that. And people basically just didn't feel like bike lanes are very safe or well kept, especially in the winter. If they want to go from place to place, they don't feel like they were able to do that safely. People did say that the trail systems are really nice along the Fox River Trail and the East River Trail, but beyond that, it's a little bit harder to get around. Somebody cited specifically going from Ashwaubenon to Green Bay is difficult and kind of unsafe to do. I just speaking personally, I used to live on Oneida Street, and I remember biking down to the farmers market once a week, and it was always an adventure to say the least. So that's definitely something that people really want to see addressed, not only from a safety standpoint, but also from an environmental justice standpoint. Once again, for folks who can't afford personal vehicles, this is really important for them. Waste management, moving on to our second to last subject here. Results were really mixed on whether or not local government provides proper education for recycling. There is a lot of education out there, but again, I think some folks just don't have that perception at the moment. People felt like, the recycling guidelines change a lot. They express confusion over what to recycle and how to recycle certain items. Questions persisted on how to educate people to first reuse and then recycle things. And people wanted to see different incentives for low waste lifestyles, how to first and foremost really discourage consumption in the first place so that there isn't a waste that exists. And people wanted to know about what kinds of markets, or how can we create more markets for waste that exists currently. And again, I know some people might have different feelings on this, but this was the perception of participants that there's not enough education. In some cases, I misquoted that. People said that there is enough education in a lot of cases, but there's not always enough accountability for people who aren't following the rules. Again, people brought up banning single-use plastics. It's not something that local government can do, but people did talk about other ways to limit waste and limit consumption. Cracking down on overproduction, for example, was given up as a general idea.
And this is all me. That's,
Yeah.
that's me right there. That's what I do. I'm the educator, so yeah, I do a good job educating.
Yes, as you do.
I think you do, yeah.
It's the accountability that we have problems with. And we're working on that too. But yeah, it's good to see that in writing. Somebody else other than me, so.
The difficulty in following changing recycling guidelines, I think, is pretty big. I mean, even I've had,
It's an ongoing issue because we don't control production.
Mhm.
And so plastics are the bane of all of us.
Mm.
Everything else is simple.
Mm.
Plastics are, just do away with them and we don't have a problem.
Is that updated on a website? Is that just, you know, I mean, there's the annual pamphlet.
The problem is that we are part of a world market for recyclables. So when the world market changes, everything changes. So and because the recycling system, especially in this area that we're part of, is so large, we're the largest publicly owned and operated recycling facility in the country, the one that's in Appleton. There's nobody else bigger than us. And we're the second largest one in the state, and we cover 650,000 people or so, because we cover not only the 3 counties that own the facility, but we also cover all of Door County, Calumet County, Kewaunee County, most of Oconto, Shawano, Wapaka counties, just a huge part of the chunk of northeast Wisconsin. Trying to get that message out is not something we have a lot of control over, because then private businesses are doing collections, and in communities we can do that. So all that's, you know, part of it, but that, at the end of the day, trying to get rid of the material is part of a global issue. And when we have tariffs on Chinese products and import and export issues, it affects everything pushing back at it. We may collect stuff right now, but we're not necessarily recycling it. It may be going into a landfill. Depends on what it is and whether there's a market for it or not. We're market driven, so if we only took what we could actually get rid of, there would be a lot more people who would be complaining about what we can only take. We wouldn't take these. There's no home for plastic water bottles of any kind other than soda and water, and, you know, single-use water bottles. We don't have a place to get rid of them. John knows this too. He deals in world markets as well, so. I was at a forum on Monday with many of the recycling facilities in the state. That's a common problem. As to what do you do with, other than cardboard, we can't get rid of a lot of paper right now either.
What?
Paper. Mixed, what we call mixed paper. So newsprint, we used to sort
Yes.
3 categories of paper. Cardboard, office paper, or clean paper, and newsprint. We don't do newsprint anymore because there are no mills that accept newsprint as a category of recycled paper
I
anymore.
had no inkling.
Yeah. So everything goes into what's called mixed paper, and mixed paper right now, because of the world markets, outside of the Fox Valley, the Paper Valley area, most recycling facilities have to pay to get rid of their mixed paper.
So should we stop putting?
No, that's the problem. It's still better on a circular economy basis to recycle than it ever will be to put things in a landfill, which is the other alternative. You know, it's at least, even if you're paying to get rid of paper, it's still, on a larger economic basis, it's better to recycle something than it is to landfill. It creates more jobs. It creates, material that you're recycling continues to be used.
Is newspaper compostable?
Yes, to a certain extent. But then we get into another whole discussion about PFAS.
So what?
PFAS.
PFAS, yeah, PFAS.
We can talk about that.
Polyfluoroalkyl and perfluoroalkyl substances. All the Marinates.
Alcohol?
No.
I'm into that.
Very, very different.
Anyway,
Yeah.
it's a challenge. I absolutely agree. We could do a better job. It's just, because we're part of a 3-county system, we have to have consistency across all 3 counties in terms of how things are done, and very slow to change. So even though it seems like the rules are changing, it's actually that, it's not that the rules are changing, it's that new products are coming into the marketplace that people want to recycle, and we can't give them good guidance on a lot of that. It's just how the manufacturers are creating new products from different plastics.
But for the homeowner or whoever, that's, what can I drop in my bin? Is there like a website that they can go?
They can go to the stuff you got in the mail on the Tri-County website, our website, Amy and Winnebago all have the same, we're all using exactly the same message. So there is one message But it's not gonna get specific to, again, for plastics, we don't tell people what numbers are recyclable, because even like a number 1 plastic, okay, it's a number 1 water bottle or soda bottle, it's recyclable. If it's a clamshell, so it has strawberries in it, or it came from the deli, or it's not the same plastic, even though the number on it's the same. It's heated differently, the chemistry changes, the product changes, and it's not a recyclable product anymore. If it's black plastic, not recyclable, because it has to be, they have to mix it back into some product that they can then color. Well, you can't, once it's a black plastic, it has to stay black.
What's the purpose
But you
of
want
the
people to
numbers?
still recycle it.
We don't want people to recycle. No, actually, the broader message in the market is when in doubt, throw it out. It's actually throwing your garbage. From a recycling system standpoint, it's actually better to throw things in the garbage than it is to put them in the recycling system. But that's an oversimplification in a lot of ways. It just gets very complicated very quickly.
What's the purpose of the numbers then if they can't?
The numbers weren't developed for recycling. They were developed by the American Chemistry Council and plastics industry as a way of identifying a resin code that's used to make the plastics. And they deliberately, from what I know of the history, they deliberately chose chasing arrow symbols to imply recyclability, but it's not. It doesn't mean they're recyclable. That's supposed to be changing over the course of the next couple of years as well. They're doing away with the arrows on the triangle. They're going to keep the triangle, but do away with the arrows on it. So anyway,
So it's better to recycle newsprint than to compost it? Because we do both.
Do both. It's a matter of, both are good.
So I mean, so the compost, then I can dump my newspapers in there?
At your compost bin?
No, your.
My compost bin, yeah, we'll accept it. It goes to a composter. It goes to Oshkosh, and they compost it.
Oh, okay.
He's just saying the way that paper is produced potentially could have contaminants in it.
Yeah.
And there's no way you're gonna know that.
Whether it's in the ink or in the paper or the product, yeah. Julia knows more about this than I do, actually. You do, you're water quality.
So should I not compost it?
Well, I'm just learning this now.
So,
myself.
I think
We
it's,
can take this up another time.
I think it's really important.
We're out of order.
I
So-
think Mark needs to do a presentation.
Right, so Seth and I have talked about Mark actually being the expert on our commission who knows about all of this and how complicated it is. I think it merits Casey finishing his presentation and then Mark coming and talking to us another time.
Yes, and we've talked about that for a year, so.
Yes, we have.
I know you did a League of Women Voters events a
Yes.
few months ago. That was very good, the information and
Excellent.
education that you did there.
Excellent. Thank you.
Well, speaking of composting.
Curbside composting.
Yeah,
There you go.
yeah, we talked to
There you
people
go.
about that. They were excited about it. We asked if people would want to pay a fee for it. And they said that they would, depending on how much it would be and how compost would be used. Yeah.
Quickly, did you ask people what income bracket they belong to?
No.
Okay.
That's a very good question, though. So, very generally, though, people were in support of paying a small convenience fee for curbside composting. So, people also wanted to see restaurants being incentivized to compost. I think the same could be said for the city as well, providing education on what and how to compost. People were very interested in this.
Mr. Casey, I'm just curious, in here, he goes, a figure, it says I would pay, figure 9, I would pay a small, it's a different graph.
Oh.
Slightly different numbers, because I can see 3, 4, 5 categories on this chart, only 4 up there. Sorry, it's the editor in me that gets.
No, thank you for pointing that out. Yeah, what do you know? I'll have to go back and look at that. I'm sorry about that.
That's okay. It's just-
Well, so
Either way, there's a high percentage of people
Would
who.
would be willing to, and anecdotally, I'd say that's true as well because
Yeah.
of our drop-off program where people
How
are
many,
basically dropping off people.
like composting like programs, I mean, do most of them charge fees? No, in general?
To drop
Is this
off?
something to,
No, you mean curbside?
I just mean in
Most
other
are-
communities
Well, I
that
mean,
do it.
curbside, you'd have to
I mean,
pay
do
for
they
it.
actually- Or is it
Yes,
just
in our
different?
state, Madison has a pilot program that they're still working on with only a few hundred participants that is paid for by the city through a grant that they got. Milwaukee uses Compost Crusaders, which is a private organization, does that. The city pays for that at like it's between $7 and $8 a person, but it's a voluntary program.
But the people aren't paying for
The
it.
people in those cases are not paying for it, but in other areas, Stevens Point has a group that's doing curbside collection, but the individual is subscribing to a collection service. That's in our program, those are the only 4 in the state that I'm aware of right now. And ours is a drop-off program that's free to anybody. That program is now taking a hit because of plastics. So we do not accept any plastic of any kind, bags or otherwise.
Yeah.
They're not composting, they're not breaking down enough.
Right.
Compostable plastic bags do not compost very well. And basically Oshkosh said they're getting too much plastic contamination and they don't want any more plastics of any kind in their system, so you cannot use a plastic bag to drop off your material. You better not, because if we get rejected, then they won't, Sanimax won't pick it up. If we have,
We will have words later.
I sent a raw email to everyone, and we sent out a letter, and
Ignored it evidently.
We've been using paper bags.
paper bags are fine, yes.
And there's stuff in
Nothing but bad news for Mark Walter.
Hey, I'm here to cheer everybody up. That's why I smile so much, he's like,
So we talked about food systems as well. And food deserts came up. People talked about food deserts and food swamps. Food deserts being areas with no food available to residents, and food swamps where they're basically areas with unhealthy or limited choices in food for people. People named a few different areas that they felt were food deserts, downtown Green Bay, which I think people have probably heard before, Main Street area and Bay Beach area. Those were the areas that people had mentioned that they felt were food deserts.
So let me just add to the food desert conversation, because it gets to be very nuanced.
Yeah.
And actually, what people don't often include are some of the minority-focused grocery stores. And so the question is, can you get like whole foods? So can you go to a grocery store and get whole foods? And in fact, there are a number of places downtown where you can buy whole foods, Save a Lot, Red Owl, I think La Espiga, Asian Taste, Asian Taste. So it's not as dire as some people make it out to be. It's not
Yeah.
about organic food. It's about, can you get whole food, like raw chicken, raw beef, raw vegetables, so you can make ingredients instead of having to get prepackaged foods.
That's a very interesting point. So going further on with food and food systems, we again had some folks from the farmery there, and one of them had brought up creating a food policy council and having them work on environmental justice issues with food systems and like supply chain issues with regional producers to make sure that food is being produced locally and that you are basically creating like a food memorandum of understanding with like local producers and grocers and everything. So a lot of participants also expressed interest in supporting, again, locally grown food, kind of going back to that food memorandum of understanding and food policy council and partnering with small sustainable farms, they specifically said, creating community gardens that are available for people, planting fruit and nut trees in public spaces that anybody could pick. I think Anchorage, Alaska does something like that, just along the streets, you're free to pick from them. So a pretty novel idea there. People in general really wanted to see the community support local agriculture and local food production as opposed to food being shipped in from another state or someplace else. They really want to support local agriculture specifically. They also expressed disappointment in the lack of local grocers, or at least what they perceived to be the lack of local grocers, and said that they'd like to see co-ops come to the area specifically.
I will say, I sat on the board for the New Leaf Food Co-op for a while. Yes, there's certainly interest in co-op, but having worked on that and taken over 8 years to arrive at nothing, I don't think there's enough demand in that area to open it up, or at least not on the scale that would really take care of the market. I think there might be an opportunity for somebody on a small scale to work with local farmers to develop an outlet. But I don't think we're ready for co-ops yet.
Did work with New Leaf for the first few years. It was disappointing.
Yeah.
We have good farmers markets, and we do have other spaces for farmers to sell, and it might be population just not big enough. I don't know what it is, but it's been a difficult road.
Need to turn a new leaf.
So basically, in conclusion, after this, happy to open it up to discussion or more questions if you have them. Residents and participants that were there were really excited about adapting and preparing for the future. They felt that that's something that needs to happen at the local level, especially when it comes to emergency preparedness and becoming more climate resilient. People want to be saving money personally through their residences and businesses through energy efficiency and clean energy, and I think even through their tax dollars in that respect. People want to be protecting public health in a changing climate and in an unpredictable era that's going to be coming as a result of that, and ensuring a just transition locally if we're going to be going into a clean energy economy in the region. As you guys all probably know, that there's been a lot of precedents set in our state and across the country with local governments doing exactly what Green Bay is doing, but also doing a little bit more with Monona, Eau Claire, Dane County, Madison. Basically, I think for Randy's sake, the pun is you have the green light to go green. So what do you think of that?
I give you a green light.
Yeah.
Can we give Green Bay some props too, because should be
definitely,
on that list, too.
Yeah, you guys definitely deserve props.
Well, we made our 100% goal before a couple of those cities did.
Yeah.
Just want to get
You
that
should,
in there.
you should brag about that.
You should brag about that.
Casey, have you looked at, and this is a really small sample size, and it's a pretty directed group of people who are providing the input here. Have you looked at expanding on this in terms of surveying a larger population for the area, or working with the what's it called, quality of life survey that's done periodically through
It's
St.
called the
Albert?
Life Study.
Life study, yeah.
I think that'd be something we'd be interested in doing, definitely. One thing we're working on doing, it wouldn't increase the sample size by a whole lot, but we are looking at doing a student-based listening session, focusing on youth at UW Bay, and having St. Norbert students come, and focusing on them specifically. But that is it's a good flag that this is something that I think definitely should be a bigger survey and have a bigger sample size. I think it would probably have pretty good results, especially looking at at state polling. Generally, people are pretty supportive of adapting to climate change and investing in clean energy. So it'd be very interesting to see it on a scale here. So
If you do work with UW Green Bay, I would strongly encourage also NWTC students. They have some really good programs over there. They're more the hands on the ground folks, because a lot of those people are actually coming into our field, into my field of waste management. So.
we've been talking with a few professors, or instructors from NWTC as well, on the energy goals specifically. Yeah, they're great.
Yeah, talking to Jenny Brinker and Steve Arendt. Also.
Mm.
I have a question.
Mhm.
So, back in the presentation, some of the respondents had talked about electric vehicle, charging stations installation, making government buildings more efficient, energy efficient.
Mhm.
So we have a little project, as you know, a little project going, trying to decide, we've approved, and the city council's approved expenditure of the excess heating tax that was appropriated to Eland Electric.
Mhm.
So which of those, from just your memory of the conversations, which of those do you think are people more interested in?
Mhm.
Government buildings being more energy efficient, or electric vehicle charging station installations?
Yeah. Surprisingly, from what I can remember of the conversations, a lot more people were interested in efficiency. I think, again, it's just because of the cost of electric vehicles for some people, and that topic wasn't as talked about as much during the listening session.
Okay,
So-
cool, thank you. I mean, we have approval to do both, but
Mhm.
just in case the money doesn't work.
Yeah.
Thank you, I appreciate that.
Other questions, comments for Casey?
This is really good.
Thank you.
A lot of good information.
And, you know, I think, just to John and Mark's point about taking your show on the road, we do have a Green Bay Neighborhood Leadership Council that meets once a month on
Every
first
other
Thursday.
month.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Every other month on first Thursday.
Mhm.
So I can connect you to the person who organizes that, and that would
Sure.
be another group of people to talk to. Maybe they can make some time for you to do some of this work amongst the neighborhood association leaders. And there's about, like, what, 40 to 50 people who attend, depending on when?
Yeah.
So,
Okay.
We'll
Yeah,
get anywhere to 30 to 50.
30 to 50?
yeah, I'd love to do that. We reached out to the neighborhood associations, I think a little bit too late, and unfortunately, they weren't able to make it.
Oh,
But
okay.
that's so I would like to circle back and reach out to them. So
I
that'd
will
be great.
connect you.
Recycle.
Recycle back.
Yes.
Yeah.
Cool.
All right. Well,
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Casey.
Thank you, Casey.
All right, we will then entertain a motion to close the floor.
Motion to close the floor.
There's a motion by Randy, second by Ned. Mark, sorry, looking at you. Long day.
Wait, sorry, I was not. Motion to close the floor by who?
Randy and Mark, not Ned.
Okay.
All right, all those in favor, say aye. All those opposed? All right, floor is closed. We will move on to, in item E, number 2, which is the third one here, but it's the report back by members on the One Water Conference in Austin.
Do we need to receive this or anything? Is there any motion for?
Just for informational, probably not.
No.
It's already included in everything.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, go ahead, Seth, you go first.
Yeah, so a number of us were able to attend the One Water Summit in Austin, Texas, 3 weeks ago now. It was put on by the U.S. Water Alliance, and there was like 950 people there from all around the country. Celestine, Deb, and then Aaron Rosnick from the planning department, and I were the Green Bay delegation. It was a really exciting conference. There's a lot of folks from from water utilities, city governments, state governments, EPA. There was artists there, NGOs, nonprofits. There's a really great mix of folks to talk about water uses. So I think that given our goals around climate resilience and stormwater runoff, I personally benefited a lot from a lot of those sessions. They really put equity at the forefront and talked about the need for engaging frontline communities in a lot of our decisions regarding climate resilience, which I found really helpful. But I would let Deb and Celestine share their feedback as well.
Do you want more specific things or just as?
Yeah, overall takeaways and things.
Okay. Well, I don't want to.
I'm so sorry. So we're recording, and if there's like side chatter, it just comes up garbled, so forgive me, but.
Oh, forgive me.
Yeah, thank you. Go ahead, Deb.
Things like nutrient reduction strategy and also hosted by Milwaukee Sewage Treatment District. There were a number of things done by people in Wisconsin, and it's going to be in Wisconsin, the next event. But bringing up a generation of water workforce, they think that water jobs are just going to be, the biggest next thing, like all the issues in water. And to bring up a workforce that reflects your community, that is equitable, that starts in the city and then can work outward was one of their big pushes. Climate resilience, we've talked about a lot of those things. What can people do in their own homes? The public expects, the city to have a plan. Casey's report worked in really well with this. Business partnerships with the city was kind of a growing trend, I guess you could say. So public companies working with the city, helping them make goals, helping them do things a little more quickly, helping them do things a little more cost efficiently. And then, there's always the balance there of keeping water not owned by private industry, keeping water, public access to clean water, a balance there. So, but that was a big thing. And arts in water, arts and culture. What's the culture of your city? How is it reflected in your city? How is an appreciation for water reflected in your city? Are people excited about water in your city? If not, how can that go forward? How can that change? So people can become more water literate and care more about what's going on in their own backyard. There's some neat ideas there. And water reuse. We have so much water where we are, but we were down there with cities who were experiencing droughts. And so every bit of their water that they could reuse was reused. And a lot of the private companies were also doing that. And I know that happens around here too. So we talked about how do we get this out to people? What would be a good vehicle? Julia, you and I have talked about to outreach. And should I talk about the idea then? Is that appropriate now? Okay, yeah, sure. We had talked about maybe, let's just throw this out there, getting together in our neighborhoods again. So using the neighborhoods to get together with people and not necessarily read off all the information about water, but to just get people talking, and maybe something could come out of that. And then maybe some people in that first group could go out and have their own little neighborhood get together and just get people talking about what are the issues in Green Bay and how can we move forward. And no, so I think that's it.
Now, I can't recall. Did I include the document?
No, it doesn't look like it's.
Okay, all right, so I will.
I left my notes at.
Yes, I'll be sure to
Just
send the document to everybody. I think I probably was still working on it. And I will include it in the minutes. So what we did was, we put together a little document with, the little quick summary of the sessions that we attended, and then our grand takeaways. So I would say generally that there was a lot of talk about equity. And there were a number of people there who were from community groups who were engaged in the work of making sure that, drinking water was equitable, that flood resiliency was equitable. So that was all very, very interesting. Our grand takeaways are that we think we should get a map with the flooded areas. There is also, FEMA calculates the number of people who have had multiple claims for flooding. And then superimpose that on household information like age of home, what neighbor association are there. There's a lot of talk about local validators, so essentially people in the community who are engaged in the work of talking to people. And that could be various types of groups, right? Certainly outreach is something that was very clear from the One Water Conference, that there are a number of communities who really have upped their outreach game. I would say, I was impressed by Hampton, Virginia. I was also impressed by San Antonio. I think Buffalo is coming online, and there were some people there from Flint, which was very interesting. And there are people who are really suffering. I think we can never lose sight of that. So we need to continue to identify stakeholders. Art for sure. There's actually a little project afoot. I'm not sure, Laura Schley is on vacation, so we will be working on this project when she gets back. But we have some erosion control specialists, and one of them came to Laura with an art project for our stormwater drains.
Oh, cool.
Yes, yes.
Love it.
Breaking down barriers between departments, which is part of what our grant is supposed to be helping us to do. And then, finding out more about what credits there may be, like trading, credit, whatever markets there are out, like funding mechanisms, which is kind of what Casey was talking about. And I don't know anything about
Are you talking
that.
about for water quality?
Well, this was, let's see, I think I had written that. This was about procurement for One Water. And they were talking about, some kind of credits, which unfortunately that was a little bit above my head because I'd never heard of it before. But let's just say funding mechanisms. And not just, and for cities. So I don't know anything about that. I think we need to know more. So those were our grand takeaways, and I will send this document to you. We all contributed to the document, we met and put it all together, so we have our proof that we were there, working, not just having fun in Austin.
Having delicious barbecue.
Having delicious. So I have to make a little joke I'll share with our fellow board members. So when Casey was talking about mosquitoes and so in Austin, there is a bridge, the Ann Richards Bridge, where for whatever reason, the way that they constructed the bridge became a perfect home for bats. So we went to go see these bats leave. They didn't perform for us. My husband and I were there that weekend, and we went, and they didn't perform for us either. But I will say the area.
Are you
was
sure they're there?
We did see some. We did see a few. The area was very mosquito-free, I have to say.
More bats.
We need a bat bridge.
So I think we need a bat bridge, yes.
That's what we need.
Yes, we do.
Bat signals.
All those.
Yes,
We do,
yes.
absolutely.
Instead of the Bart Star, the Bat Star?
Okay.
Oh, man.
Marketing
So-
opportunities are
I
endless.
have a question about the
Julia, this will
Austin.
teach you something.
Yes, yes, go ahead, Ned.
At least over the, my years living in Green Bay, fishing has been kind of a issue of environmental justice, and especially, for a time it was kind of new among families to the area, and there was a lot of African American families that use the river to fish, and it seems to be impacting you know, families differently depending on access to resources and getting out to like clean fishing spots, right? So
Mhm.
is that something that might have come up, you know, in the clean water, you know, I mean, we want clean drinking water, of course, and also clean fishing water, right?
Right.
Is that something that came up in the
I don't
Austin?
recall seeing a session about that, and there wasn't your friend from Madison.
In Wisconsin.
Yes.
Vicky Elkin?
No, not Ezra, dark hair.
Who, me?
Yes, he sat with, he came to Uncle Julio's with us. He was saying that,
Uncle Hooey,
yes.
down by the schoolyard?
That missed something.
So he was talking about how he's working with dairy farmers, and there just wasn't a lot in the conference about,
Oh, he's from southwest Wisconsin?
Yes.
yes,
What is his
dark
name?
hair.
Yeah.
Oh, I
Chad,
don't know him.
Chad.
Anyway,
Yeah.
so I'm not sure
Sugar-
if there was
Sugar
anything
Valley or
about
something.
fishing. But I will say that there wasn't much about agriculture,
Mhm.
so.
There was one session on ag that I
Yes,
attended.
that you did go to.
Yeah, and like that, it was kind of mentioned, just really, like, and Casey mentioned this in his thing too, bringing farmers to the table to be a part of the solutions and giving them the tools to do so rather than demonizing them. That was really the only like thing on ag that was focused on. Like another big takeaway that I had, I guess our problems are like very unique in that we have like a lot of water, but obviously we're in Texas, there's a lot of Texans, there's a lot of folks from California. So many of the sessions and so many of the problems were framed around lack of access to water and quantity issues on the other side of the, you know, deficient spectrum, so.
But I will say that, you know, because this is coming to Milwaukee in 2021.
Yeah.
And so we were really just saying, what changes would we make? And I think recreating fishing, especially as it is informed by the Native American nations we have here, I think that would be an important add-on
Yeah.
to the conference. So let me just mention that to them.
Wisconsin's
If you're, I mean,
constitutional.
and then maybe a conversation for another time about equity or environmental justice and fishing spots. I mean, the advisories are the same pretty much everywhere. I mean, yeah, so the lower river here has PCBs, which are being cleaned up, but, you know, after the PCBs are done, you're just gonna have a mercury advisory, which it doesn't go away once you go out of the river. So and it's the type of fish maybe people are eating it rather than where they're fishing. That would be probably more of an issue in how it's affecting people. And then in terms of increased recreation, we're in an amazing spot right now. Like coming up, we have Kenyers is going under I was just there today. That's going to really increase people's access to the water. Renard Island's being developed for public access, and Bay Beach is coming online, and so those are really large chunks of the coast that have previously not really been accessible to people, that all of a sudden they're going to have recreational access to. So that's pretty exciting right now around here too. So.
Are you gonna be able to fish off the pier from like Bay
Oh
Beach?
yeah, and then they're gonna but it's pretty shallow. So.
We're gonna have it.
Well, it goes up so far, doesn't it?
Yeah, but it's
Still pretty
really
shallow.
shallow.
Oh, okay.
But it's a wildlife viewing platform pier, but fishing.
we're
And then
gonna
Renard
have at
Island.
least, 2 or 3 fishing piers off the bay, the north side.
Tower Drive? I mean,
Renard.
Rio Frio?
No, Renard.
But in terms of like contamination and fish,
Oh,
there's not gonna be a
right,
difference
okay.
between fishing at the mouth of the river, at the Metro boat landing versus fishing over at Bay Beach.
Are we
Right.
doing
Right, you have to get
Or-
further up into the bay for it to
Yeah,
change
we
slightly.
make
Yeah, but you're
habitat
still
in the
gonna
water
have
for
mercury
fish?
restrictions in general. And there's just gonna be fish that no one should eat, like an 8-year-old man shouldn't eat.
Yeah.
Like what?
Like channel catfish.
Channel cat, yeah.
How's that one? Or.
Channel cat.
What, is that a
And I
different-
think that's more of an issue, is like, how do we make sure people aren't eating those?
Educate. Yeah, like
Does it-
sign.
Channel catfish look different from any other kind of catfish?
There's cultural barriers you're not thinking, or cultural things, parts of that too, though, that are just education too.
It's a lot of the bottom feeding species.
And the large predators,
Okay.
like walleye, large walleye, you shouldn't eat right now. Anything like above 22 inches, it's probably not a good idea. But you're not a woman of childbearing age, so I don't think it's less of a concern for you.
I can eat all the walleye I want, huh?
Go ahead.
Thanks, Julia.
And like I said, one of the other, interesting things is Wisconsin's constitution in terms of how the waters in Wisconsin are held in trust by the state for the use of public, residents of the state. That is pretty unique nationwide in terms of water law. There's Texas, you own a piece of property, you own to the center of the earth, to the moon, basically. That's, if somebody wants to fly over your property and you don't want to, you can file a complaint, go to court, kind of thing. So that affects water, and then go west, and western water laws, just nuts. First in, first out, kind of things,
Yeah, one more thing about contaminated fish, we're ending, like right now is ending the dredging for the PCB cleanup. And where they've dredged, like up in Little Lake Butamort, they've seen over a reduction of like over 75% of PCB reductions in fish tissue already. So that is awesome news for here and like good things to come. It's a great time for it, moving forward in terms of, and then we just worry about mercury, and that's everybody's problems. And PFAS, which we'll catch you up on. So.
What's producing the mercury?
Yeah, well,
Global emissions, and coal. Mostly.
You ever heard of coal?
But we have, there's other.
Clean coal.
There are other things.
All right. Other feedback or questions about the conference here? Cool. All right, we'll move on to item 3 then of informational. Update from members on goals and activities. So if anybody has any updates, can share those with the group.
This is for our outreach stuff.
Yeah, anything not on the agenda, not for vote, just
Right.
informational purposes.
So just to give you a little update on that newsletter thing that we talked about a few months ago, I met with Julia and we're kind of taking a different route, sort of trying to, instead of just being informational, maybe go through the neighborhoods and start off a little bit at a time, like things like what is sustainability and what are some examples of who we are.
Who is the sustainability
Right,
committee?
right.
That's I thought a good starting point.
Yeah. So breaking it down a little bit more, maybe going through the neighborhoods, that kind of thing. Nothing yet, still sort of in the works, but also bringing in businesses and in a way that maybe we could propose green business initiatives to businesses and invite them to come on board. So it's a little bit long-term, but it's still in the works. We're working on that. Also, I just wanted to talk about Sanimax. I went there, and where are my notes? This is an unbelievable company. I have my notes there. Hold on. Okay, well, I'm going to have to do this by memory. So they recycle everything, as you probably know. Yeah, but I didn't know this. And the only things I knew about Sanimax really were there's a smell in the wintertime that people were very irritated with, and that it had a lot to do with meat processing, but it's really not that. It's everything that comes from the animal is sent to Sanimax. And they make pet food, they make hides, they make chemicals that go into soaps and cleaning fluids and so many different things. They use everything. They take the oil from restaurants and reuse that and turn that into things. And it's pretty incredible what's going on there. They have their own wastewater treatment plant, right? They treat their own water on site and then they send it back to NEW for further treatment. They, I talked to Don, I can't remember his last name. Anyway, he said that if they didn't do what they do, after 4 years, the landfills would be overflowing with all kinds of stuff that come from animals and cooking oils and things like that. So it's really incredible what they do at Sanimax. And one of the piece of advice he had for us is try to, instead of working just locally, Green Bay, try to if you can, make it countywide or beyond, or tear it, like, the northwest or east Wisconsin, that kind of thing. So other people aren't reinventing the wheel and working against one another, that it's kind of all coming together if you can get more people at the table. He's seen it sort of backfire in other places in the state where the city isn't the same as the county, isn't the same as the region, et cetera. So he did have that advice. I thought that was good advice.
Well, not much we can do about it, though. I mean, we're a city functioning body. We really don't have any leverage or authority or, I mean, we can make connections and talk, but.
What we do, at least on the waste side of things,
Right.
because
Yeah.
Tri-County is a solid waste management system
Yeah.
for 3 counties, so, and those are common decisions made throughout the
Yeah.
area. Now, we still bow to the needs of the market, but there's a lot more consistency here than in other parts of the state or other parts. And being that we're public and we own the recycling facility and the landfills, there's a lot more control from the local government in terms of what we do. We don't do our work in Brown County in a vacuum, based on solely on markets. We have agreements with every community and negotiate agreements, but based on, we set our work orders also based on what De Pere and Green Bay and Alloy Ashwaubenon, in our case, want us to look for. We're single stream recycling because De Pere and Ashwaubenon wanted that. That was who kicked it off. So they pushed the county into it. Kicking and screaming all the way, I think, but it's on before my time, but it's on nonetheless. It was a good thing. So yeah, there's certainly one part of that has value. There's a regional impact that's, I think, is missing in other parts of the state as well. There's still a lot of, us versus them, the county versus local government in other ways. So that's political realities, right?
Yep. One more thing I just want to add on what they do. When animals become diseased and they have to get rid of the animals because of the
Disease or
yeah, whatever disease it is that these animals come down with, and you can't take them to the market. They take the dead animals and process them at a temperature that's safe and destroy the viruses, and they take care of it. They take care of all the stuff that we don't want to take care of. It's things we don't like to talk about, or
Interesting.
Cool.
Yeah.
right here in Green Bay.
Are they a global company?
I think they actually started in Quebec.
they were
The Green Bay is
Animax.
pretty big, isn't it? I mean, the Green Bay.
Animax.
They were Animax, Sanimax. They're North America. If you look at, because they're the collector for our organics, we kind of looked at where they cover, and they cover the northern tier of the United States and Canada. They're not really in the southern part of the U.S. too much. Historically, they haven't.
Yeah, I think they take stuff from
All over.
just
Any
about
place.
everywhere.
Meat, they're here because we have meat processing that's been here for however long, 100 years.
Very cool. All right, any other reports or updates from folks?
Just to say that I have an intern again this semester, so she's working on some stuff for census with me, but also on the solar project. So we'll be ready. Jesse and she and I are going to meet next week, I believe, to go over some of the work that she helped me do to decide what our next step is for those solar installations. So we'll be ready for November. She was going to come tonight, but she's not feeling well. She'll be here in November.
Cool.
I got 2 things. I was at a meet and greet for architects and engineers and people in construction, and I met Greg Douglas, who teaches a sustainability class out at NWTC. We got into a conversation. I said, well, maybe what he's doing, he should come and talk to us and see, we could know what they're doing and see if there's any connections we can make and work together and so on. And so he gave me his card. I can give that to the chair to maybe reach out and talk to them about doing that. And the other thing, I don't know, anybody read the press gazette today about passive homes?
No,
Yes.
I'm out of my article in it. Trying to
Yeah.
figure out where that new Thai restaurant is.
Yeah, so anyway, I'm gonna start looking into that and seeing what we can do with passive homes and see just what all is involved with it, what all we might be able to do from the city standpoint as far as our codes and ordinances and stuff, and see how we can promote and push passive homes. They use 90% less energy.
Wow,
Oh,
that's incredible.
Yeah, they do not need a furnace, they do not need an air conditioner.
Pollinator corridor, we met a couple months ago. We meet again next month, and looking at possible ordinances regarding neonics around the country, neonicotinoid additives to plants, which have been linked to a lot of bee die-offs. Looking at that, we'll be looking at possibly crafting some suggestions for the Wisconsin Department of Transportation and some of the other local projects that are going on. So there's a lot of good people involved with that. And then energy, we met briefly, or I guess a small group of us met with the mayor, and we'll be meeting again next week.
Yeah.
Talk our goal for 100% clean energy and what are the myriad steps to get there.
Speaking of our collaboration with NWTC, Jenny Brinker and Steve Arness, I believe is his last name, both instructors there. They're really excited about engaging their students on our work. Jenny has talked about how her students need just a certain amount of like experiential hours doing like real actual things. So all of those energy bills for the city buildings that have been in my inbox for a while that I've been meaning to put into the benchmarking tool, her students need to practice benchmarking using that exact same tool. So they're really excited to help us out there. I'm really excited to not have to do that data entry myself. And yeah, so they're going to be participating in the work group that we'll be meeting next week. So that's cool stuff happening there. I also finally got a little bit of a chance to dig into the SoulSmart program through the Department of Energy I've been talking about. Midwest Renewable Energy Association is figuring out if they do have some carryover funds where they could kind of be our mentors or whatever. It's similar to the green tier like criteria. There's different things that you get points for. It's a little bit more technical. If they're able to help us, that would be an easier lift on city staff, but I figure in the next couple months here, when we have a little bit more capacity, we could look at doing that, or possibly enlist some students to help us with that as well. But a number of cities in Wisconsin are silver or gold. Stevens Point just got their gold designation like 2 weeks ago. So it's a really cool thing, and it sounds like if we do the assessment and we're not gold yet, there are a number of like really small things that we can do that can have a really high impact and make us a lot more solar friendly. So more to come on that. Any other updates from folks?
Sure, I can go. I think that the last meeting I mentioned, there's a UW-Madison graduate, urban and regional planning and water resources management graduate student. And taking Ned's advice, instead of having her come here and talk to us, we just moved ahead with doing it. So she's helping us, she's using some ARC planner, GIS planner platform. I'm clearly not the GIS person, but anyway, she's a planning student, so she's going to help do some mapping for us around green infrastructure in the city. And so we had a series, she came up and had a series of meetings, and Mark's been he's agreed to be on that little group with us. And we met with some natural resource folks, like wildlife folks, so I actually got some information about some transmission type studies that from U.S. Fish and Wildlife that you're just reminding me that I should probably, I haven't even looked at it honestly, but I'll pass along information to you, because they did mapping about corridors for pollinator stuff specifically. Anyway, And then, so we're in green infrastructure, we're considering like a bigger umbrella that includes not just stormwater green infrastructure, but like pollinator, like natural habitats, wetlands and stuff like that too. And then we met with the mayors in Celestine, so that was pretty enlightening. And then we met with Public Works and Planning, and that was also enlightening. So there's, but we're going to be working on this project for a while, I guess. And so that's a good update about that. I don't know, do you have anything to say about that? Just it's kind of, the student was full-time during the summer, but now she's down to 10, but I think Sea Grant is committing her for a couple more semesters to help with this project. It is just going to be like more of a mapping GIS exercise right now at this point, so go ahead.
Pulling in all the data layers for all the different, a lot of it's stormwater management layers, and floodplain and green corridors, and so part of the meeting was just giving her some ideas about what other layers are out there and what may have existed. Very enthusiastic, very knowledgeable, so it's one of those things where I wish I was still doing GIS.
Okay, great. I forgot that you love GIS, so I should mention that I have a graduate student here at UW Green Bay who's helping me, or us, the Biodiversity Center, and me develop a Wicquiac-Mahone Creek watershed plan. And we are having a community stewardship meeting next Tuesday night at the Town of Scott Town Hall. And I guess this is relevant because Green Bay has city property within this watershed in general. We're really focusing on Wicquiac Creek right now for the most part, not so much Mahone. And a lot of Mahone is Lake Largo neighborhood and then also the university. So. But then Wicquiac Creek is a little bit of the town of Humboldt, and then this weird Green Bay parcel that's stuck in like the town of Scott area. So, but you know, that whole watershed really comes down and connects to Nicolay Drive. So, and they have been having major flooding issues on Nicolay Drive, and I came in. And the county is working on Nicolay Drive, but the city's also involved, and there's potentially a big ask for money so anyway, there's it's very all interconnected, even though. So we'll be developing actions to put in that watershed plan for water quality stuff, and they have a lot of agricultural area in that watershed. And then my head's kind of spinning right now. There's a lot of grants deadlines coming up, and a lot of people have been talking to me about grants and what we can do. So I know that in collaboration with UW Milwaukee, we're going to be applying for a grant to do a climate research summit next year, summer. So we'll bring researchers from across the Great Lakes, and it's really related to the watershed and so forth. So, but it's going to be focused on climate change. It's through the RICO Foundation, who's focusing on climate. So I'm involved in that one for sure. UW-Madison.
Sorry, is that going to be in Green Bay or Milwaukee?
That would be here,
would
because
be.
it's the Green Bay watershed.
Oh, okay.
It's the lower Fox River watershed.
Oh, okay.
Specifically, in Green Bay, like all the hypoxia, or like the blue-green out, the dead zone issue, and like how do we have a resilient landscape, and how does it affect the bay into the future?
Cool. That's really good.
UW-Madison engineering department, Professor Chin Woo, he came up here for a flood thing, and then also Sea Grant. We're very interested in working with the city and just trying to help provide assistance and potentially even apply for a grant if you wanted us to, regarding the flooding and coastal resiliency issues. We just we're struggling with the what needs to be done, what needs to be done. And then, and so, yeah, more to come on that, I guess, Celestine. We can talk later, I guess. But I also spoke with Matt Heckenleibel a little bit about that, and they're just in crisis mode because it's just been flooding for the last year. So, like I don't know. He doesn't know what they need either. But it seemed.
He's just trying to keep his head above water.
I would say so. It sounds pretty nuts. Heard about the East Ballroom, is that what it's called? The Riverside.
Riverside Ballroom.
Oh,
Did that flood?
I think like 4 pipes burst.
Yeah,
like
there were a bunch of pipes that
24-inch
burst.
pipes burst.
That's right. And
Yeah.
a worker caught it before it caved in.
Jeez.
So he's.
What
it's
caused
very-
What caused it, I'm not sure.
Oh.
All the stormwater.
Really?
And probably
Stormwater
coastal
caused
flooding,
flooding.
because the East River is very much influenced by the coastal water, like, so there was a north wind and then too much water.
Yeah.
Or old aging infrastructure is really actually the issue there.
Tell me about
The
it.
Nature Conservancy right now is working with Bay Lake Regional Planning and the city, and they're developing an East River wildlife habitat corridor plan right now. I talked to the Nature Conservancy, and we, for several years, have been interested in maybe doing a more of a flood/water quality study for the East River as a watershed. So if the city, I know the city, the mayor's mentioned the watershed parts, being interested in looking at it more from a upstream, like collaborative. The Village of Alloway is very interested in this, so maybe there's a grant around that. And then I just recently have been in touch with New Water, who is planning on doing a grant application to do
Yes.
green infrastructure plan in Brown County, and
They contacted us.
they asked probably for a letter of
They
recommendation.
did, yep.
So
We just got
I
that
don't,
today.
and that's through Angela Kowalczyk-Adrian's. And so I talked to her briefly about how that meshes with ours, and I think we both have something similar in mind, because she was at our meetings too, but they would really be trying to get, this plan is really trying to get in the weeds about where to put stuff for the communities.
Very cool. You're not busy.
Sounds like a lot of good work.
Plus,
I don't know. It's
plus
just-
all the AOC work that's going on right now too. It's just, yeah. All the habitat work.
I'm sorry. Those are, I think those things are really relevant potentially for the city, so. Well, I'm not doing all of them,
I know.
I don't
What?
think. But maybe if you want me, the city lets us know what we want, that's fine. So,
Are any of them coming up against a tight deadline?
yeah, 3 of these, I'm not involved in the New Water one, but the other 3, I mean, there's, November 1st is the deadline for
Oh,
grants, for
yeah.
the Wisconsin Coastal Management Grant. So that's the big one, and then the BRICO one is also November 1st too, so.
And have you've met with Celestine, or you're?
No, we haven't
No,
spoken, it's been a
budget
couple of
time.
months.
Budget time.
It's,
It sounds like really
it's
important.
challenging
Yeah.
because
Possibility
there's,
isn't-
it's like her, I understand she's not just like this resilience point.
We need to get one.
A chief
Yeah.
resiliency officer?
Yeah, so and then also there is definitely it's kind of like, I found it challenging but I think we're going in that direction, working with the departments, because everyone's so busy doing their day-to-day work and the crisis stuff that's happening, it's very hard to understand like the lay of the land and who wants what and where things are going. So the mayor's office might want something, but then like it's like just dealing with flooded East Ballroom
Mhm.
issues, infrastructure issues, like straight up, and then it's budget time, right? So I don't know.
Well,
It's navigating that
the
is-
reason I pushed when we met last year, I don't remember, but to get authority to pursue grants is because of tight deadlines, right? So if you, and we do have that now, right? Council okayed that for us, so if you feel that there's something to one of these 3 that are coming up soon, like, I think it would be, I think we would agree it would be worthwhile at least getting the ball rolling on.
Okay.
How do other people feel about that?
Not the ball rolling, at least the water flowing.
The water flowing on what you think would be the most important or one to tackle. Yeah.
The East River Resiliency thing could be really good. We've been talking about that for several years, and there's work going on, and that's like up in, it starts actually up in Allegheny, south in Allegheny County. You have a lot of work has been done assessing water quality and what needs to be done to meet water quality requirements. But there hasn't, and then there's also Allegheny County is actually helping doing a storage study right now in the watershed But there's nothing really, and then there has been a NOAA study looking at flooding. If we preserve land upstream, how would that help flooding downstream damages actually, and putting numbers to that. I think there needs to be so I think that's good effort, because also according to the mayor, I mean, everyone, it seems, there's several communities working to potentially work, interested in working together on solving these issues. They're very interrelated. So I think that's a really good one. And just getting some data, like a flood study would be good. UW-Madison engineering, it's just what does the city, we can help do whatever. We have modeling, we have, collaboration and bring in partners and stuff. It's they have several pockets. It's not just the East River is a flooding problem. There's major flooding issues in different parts of the city that are different watershed issues and infrastructure issues. So do we want to look at this West Slough that is West High School and the Shipyard area and a Seymour Park area? Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct.
That is a major flooding issue, and they have coastal issues, influence, and stormwater issues. Do you want to look at that? All the solutions so far right now are all gray infrastructure, more pumps, bigger pipes solutions. Do we want to try to back up and look at? I don't know. It just depends. Whatever the city wants to. I don't know. Just doing a vulnerability climate assessment, risk assessment, or flooding risk assessment. I don't know. It sounds like a lot of the flooding issues have been mapped in the city.
Yes, they have.
Already, so but maybe that's not, I don't know. There you go.
Is there somebody
What
else
do you-
that you're working with that you could work with on any of those grants?
Yeah, all of them have, we can't do those without partners, so the Nature Conservancy is.
I mean, to help you write it.
Oh, no. Oh, no. How do you? It's more, well, the partners who would be involved.
Is there a project that you know of that you would like to see happen that would fit within one of these grants?
How does the East River one sound?
Sounds great, that's right by where I live, so clean it up.
What's the source of these?
Where's the pass?
It's up in Allegheny County.
I thought it was Calumet and Manitowoc that it went down to.
Oh.
It's on the
Okay.
east side.
I don't know.
East side of the
That's so
Fox
bad that I
River.
don't know that. I thought it was.
No, I'm pretty sure it's, because my career started with East River Party Watershed Project years in the 1990. I worked on that. I'm pretty sure it stays east of the Fox, and the Fox provides the boundary. I think it's Calumet and Manitowoc that the East River just touches it. Most of it's Brown County, the vast majority of East River watersheds within Brown County.
We've lost houses in the neighborhood, due to flooding.
Yeah, I think there's just for the last forever, 40 years, it's all been on water quality, but I think there's really an opportunity to bring in the flood and the coastal resiliency pieces right now. There's a lot of attention on it. There's serious issues. And one of the public health problems, that has been more starting to come with flooding, because flooding's the biggest natural disaster in the country, is mental health problems. I mean, we've had the conversation where, you have parents that have, or I don't know, people are out of their houses, maybe they're condemned. I mean, that's affecting their work schedules, and there's gonna be some, there's communities that are going through post-traumatic stress stuff with these crises. I mean, it's money, I don't know, it's a lot of issues around that too.
Could we just kind of say, please do something, and then if you want to, but if you want to, could you send to Celestine to send it out to the group, what you're, or send it to
She's
I don't-
like,
just forward it, that's all.
Yeah, I
Right.
think
We-
there
it's
should
up-
be staff
there's a,
capacity, so.
Yeah.
To let us know what you're
Because
what
we
you're
have a
doing.
grant that we have to get started, don't forget.
Yeah.
We've
The East
received the
River,
grant.
you know
We
what,
have
the
to get
East River
started.
one, so the East River one would be good because it doesn't require much from,
But
it
then what about
wouldn't
the fund
require
for Lake Michigan?
the city. The city wouldn't have to be the applicant for the East River. We could do
Okay.
it as because it's gonna be a multi-community
Okay.
county project,
Mhm.
right? That would be, and then all you do is provide maybe a letter of support, we commit to being a part of this project kind of thing. Yeah, and then you want to the city should be thinking about the
Fund for
upcoming
Lake
Fund for Lake
Michigan.
Michigan one
That
that's
is
coming
my
up at
goal.
the end of this
Yes.
year. And really starting to think about that, what, November?
Yeah,
Like,
like,
so-
I've already started, we already have a draft position for
Okay.
Sustainability Coordinator, Chief Resiliency Officer.
Yes, yeah.
That's an inside joke. So, to let everybody know, we were sitting at a table at the One Water Conference, and there was somebody sitting at our table who was a Chief Resiliency Officer, so I said, hey, what do you do? And I said, I don't know that we can have one here in Green Bay, because there's a difference between being an officer and a coordinator. And so she was a little high-handed with me, unfortunately, but that's okay.
Yep.
We're moving forward anyway. But, so, we already have a draft position, we've
Yeah.
already talked to where it needs to go in the table of organization. So that's my next step. But if the community would like to work on the East River one, I think that would be great if I can connect. You know, certainly a letter of support is very doable.
Okay. Did a grant come together for hazard mitigation planning
Not that-
for that Van Beaver area?
Oh, yeah, no, not that I know of.
Okay.
That doesn't mean there isn't one, I've not heard of one. People getting together for that.
Okay.
And I do have someone else identified in City Hall who's interested in working on resiliency, so.
Oh, great.
She came and talked to us, Corey Mean, from the Parks Department.
Oh, she's a resilient person.
I'm done with you now.
It's double digits.
Giving you. So, if you would like to, if the commission, I mean, the devil is always in the details and who's doing the work. You know I'm about that. So, if someone would like, if there'd be folks interested in doing that, the East River, I think that'd be fabulous. We would absolutely, the mayor's office, city would definitely support that. In terms of committing any staff from the city, that's another conversation I need to have with folks, because I've already committed staff for the Great Lakes Champions mini grant. So, and I need to get a staff before I commit more staff.
So nothing has been written yet or created. We took some notes today on the phone, but so I don't think we need to, like, if I move forward, this isn't something to like have a decision about today, but because it's coming up, so maybe we'll have some good news, and I can definitely share with the.
So you can share, I would just send it to Seth.
And then I might be asking you for a letter.
Yes, that is very doable. And so in terms of, so what Seth is going to do, you can send it to Seth. Seth will send it out as a BCC so that there isn't talking back and forth. But informational one way is fine.
Sorry, to you.
Yes.
Sorry, I spaced out there. You first.
Yes.
No.
Do you CC you? Is that, or do you rather just send it to him?
Then I
no
misspoke when I
CC?
said Celestine, that was incorrect.
Yeah, I mean, Seth is fine. I mean, he can do that as a chair. I mean, I can do this as a staff member. I mean, I think it's nice
Yeah.
for it to come from Seth. But,
I
yeah,
can do
Seth
that.
will just let me know.
So I'll be BCC'd. Great news. All right.
Sorry.
Thank you,
It was
Julia.
very long.
That was long but great. Great
Long,
update.
great.
Julia's, she's right in there.
Good stuff. She-
Yep,
I'm trying.
In the midst of so much
You're doing.
good stuff.
yep.
I feel like it's crazy, because I mean, just everything's like, all of a sudden, it's like, hurry up and wait, almost.
Mm.
Or, I don't know. What
Just
we're
hurry up.
Going through.
Just hurry up.
Hurry up.
Just
So all of a sudden.
there's no wait.
All of a sudden,
Right.
2019, hurry up and do it.
Yeah.
Now that we've decided to do something.
True.
Cool. Any other updates, folks?
I will commit myself.
Oh, yeah?
That's right, who's doing the work? That's exactly right.
Those are words you never hear from me.
Who's doing the
No, we'll
work?
commit you for you. Yes, yeah, we've talked about this in the past, and
Yeah.
I'm more than happy to come and talk about, the world of waste that I deal with, because it is my area of knowledge these days. One update on that gets back to actually Casey's presentation is that the 3 counties, we are working on a master recycler program.
Oh.
So it's kind of like a master
Master recycler.
gardener. Well, it follows along in the same area. There are other communities in the country I've talked to, Twin Cities, there's a community in Minneapolis area, there's one in Indianapolis area that have master recycler programs, and it's basically getting someone, we're, in Brown County, I'm the educator, and it's, the recycling side of my work is only 60% of my time, and, of port and resource recovery, I'm 60/40. So of my 60% of the time on resource recovery, that's household hazardous waste, it's recycling, it's contract management, it's, I'm on the council on, Governor's Council on Recycling now, I'm on a whole bunch of other things as well, so it gets diluted pretty fast. So we'd like to spread the knowledge out there and get people who actually really understand what this means, and we can get certified to go out and talk to other people and help spread the message better, so that we're not relying just on ourselves and trying to figure out how to get 500,000 people educated to do the right thing when things change. So.
Right, there's nothing worse than spreading misinformation.
That is, yeah.
Well, it depends on who you are.
I feel like the whole, now, this news story about China not accepting recycling has probably destroyed 40 years of getting people to recycle.
Well, interestingly enough, it's hit, so I track month to month, I know, exactly what's coming through my doors in terms of where it's coming from, what community it's from. The material we get from communities hasn't changed in any significant manner. The stuff we get from the private sector definitely has, because they're making decisions that I'm not sure how they're making decisions in terms of whether or not they're collecting material anymore. So our total volume of recyclables right now is down probably 10% from last year to this year. And that is almost, I'm certain it's from changes in the market where we don't have a place to send certain types of plastic. And the state law doesn't require that we do collect certain types of plastics. I mean, it's basically, it's very specific in terms of what, it doesn't actually say that you have to collect things, it says these things are banned from being landfilled. And that drives our recycling programs in the state of Wisconsin. So there are a lot of things that people think have to be recycled that are actually not on that list. So the companies that are trying to make money on this are just landfilling it. Because right now, the cost of the per ton value of recyclables is, the cost you pay to get rid of a ton of recyclables at the gate rate in our area is higher than it is for landfill. You're paying more to recycle than you are to landfill if you just come across our scale without having some other agreement in place. So that changes behavior. We don't have a good solution to it yet. It'll change. It's another year or two and things will start moving around the other ways. When Green Bay Packaging comes online in 2021, that will have a huge effect on the recycling market, because all their feedstock is recyclable cardboard and other papers. And they're going to add a huge amount of capacity. And there's 2 other mills in this area that are also going to add capacity in the next couple of years. So. Oh, yeah, there's, like I say, I can talk for a long time, folks, so.
Well, November, we'll look forward to it.
I'm gonna be gone.
I'm gonna be wasted.
That was perhaps the
No, it
last
wasn't.
tonight.
Cool. Well, any other updates?
Motion to adjourn.
There's a motion
Second.
to adjourn. There's a second. Ned and Randy respectively. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed?
Make sure you leave the meeting.
Adjourned.
Get home for my baby's birthday.
Don't log out, we gotta go to the agenda.
Do I have to log
Well,
back in
she
now?
might kick us off.
She can kick you
Hey.
off.
Oh, thank you.
Usually,
Yeah.
you go back,
Don't know me.
you hit agenda and it takes you back.